Good evening. Chappy here. Excited to be with you. It's funny. In bachelor mode tonight. The wife is not with me, so just kind of adjusting to that. But I'm really excited to talk some baseball with you, and hope you guys enjoy the content. My name's Chappy. Chap's Fantasy Chat. Thursday nights at 8. Going to talk a bunch of baseball. Starting to get some movement. Starting to get a little bit interesting. Just a little over 2 months away from opening day. Of course, I'm looking forward to some spring training before that. But, it's one of those things where now's a great opportunity to really pay attention to fine-tuning. It's early to start making your lists. It's early to start doing draft strategy and stuff like that. But what it isn't too early to do is really hyper pay attention to some of these moves and what that means for opportunity, because fantasy baseball really is about opportunity. Of course, you have to do something with the opportunity, but a lot of who's going to be able to be productive is being established right now. And fact of the matter is, this is not a usual offseason. There's been a lot of weird circumstances that are going to go into preparing for this upcoming fantasy baseball season. So let's talk about where we are and what we're looking for. So again, we've talked about this a little bit in the past, but fact of the matter is, there wasn't fans in the stands last year. There was a truncated year, only 60 games, about a third of the season. That means that there's a lot less revenue for these owners to go out and spend in the offseason. Players took, prorated salaries. It was a weird season. So what does that mean? Well, it means a number of things. The first thing is, I think it really means a lot in that it shows just how committed some of these teams are to winning, and just how uncommitted to winning some of these teams are. What do I mean? It separates even more haves, previously were haves, and puts them in the have-not categories. You can look at the entire National League Central and say that applies to that division. The Cubs, the Cards, the Reds, and the Brewers have all trimmed payroll because they know realistically they don't have the firepower to go out and spend $200 million and compete with the Dodgers, to spend $193 and compete with the Yankees. So, you're seeing these teams dump payroll, and it's going to a handful of teams. And the teams that are slashing payroll are really depending on developing their talent. Now, if you're the Tampa Bay Rays, you can afford to do that. You've proven a winning formula at developing your players at the major league and getting them to the major league level. If you're Pittsburgh, you got to prove yourself. So, again, I mentioned earlier, $203 million for the Dodgers. The Rays are coming in currently at $53 million for the organization. So the Dodgers versus the Rays in the World Series, one of these teams is spending $203 million this season, and the other one's currently is spending $53 million. Talk about a contrast of styles, right? In other words, Tampa Bay's in essence paying 1/4 less than what the Dodgers are going into this season. It's quite a contrast. Only Pittsburgh and Cleveland are spending are spending less currently than the Tampa Bay Rays, the defending American League champions. That's impressive. So, as we look at this stuff, tonight we're going to start talking about the big spenders this year. We're going to talk about trying to project moves forward. How likely it is that Team A will make a move versus Team B, right? We'll look at their payrolls, maybe where they're able to go up to, and what they've done and what they're trying to build on. But first, I thought it was interesting. I start digging into this stuff, and I probably go a little further than I should. So the top 5 current payrolls in the majors, as mentioned, the Dodgers are number 1 at $203 million. The Yankees are number 2 at $193 million. The Mets are 3rd at $180 million. The Angels are 4th at $172 million, and the Astros are coming in just behind them at $172 million and change. I rounded that stuff down because this is all going to change. There's so many free agents still out there. But I think it speaks to, for the top 5, payrolls are coming directly from New York and LA. What's that say? There's an inherent advantage to having those big television markets. There's an inherent advantage to being able to spend a little bit more frivolously on players. Now, you could say the Yankees have done it better than the Mets. The Dodgers have done it better than the Angels. But are those changing? Both the Angels and the Mets are trending, if you will. I'm not going to talk about the GM of the Mets. That's crazy. But you have to think that both of those teams have aspirations of catching their big brothers on the other side of town. And, I just think it's interesting because if you look at the flip side, the 5 lowest payrolls in the majors. We talked about Cleveland, $37 million. So for contrast, the Yankees are paying Garrett Cole $36 million this year. That's a big difference. Almost unsurpassable, really, right? Pittsburgh, second worst, second lowest, $42 million. That's probably going to go down as the season goes on, as they continue to slash payroll. Frazier, Polanco, Williams, you have to figure all might get moved in the near future. Tampa Bay's 3rd, $53.8 million. Talked about them a little bit. Miami is 4th, $54.7, and Baltimore is 5th at $60.2 million. So there's quite a contrast even between these low spenders, if you will, right? Because, Pittsburgh's been terrible forever. Ben Cherington, I talk about him a lot. I really believe that, they've kind of turned the corner there. I know a lot of the Pirates fans are really skeptical still. I mean, Bob Nutting is still the owner. So as long as he's there, they're not going to believe the hype. But Cherington is a quality GM, and I believe the trades that he's made thus far have been good. There are too many Polanco's, Durf. Welcome. Thanks for coming. But fact is, if you look at the players they traded away and contrast them against the ones they kept, just like the Cubs, they've made bad decision after bad decisions. That's why it's the analysis, but more than the analysis, it's the breaking down of the analysis that's been bad for both of those teams. So until you get those bad decisions, that's why everybody's like, oh, Theo. I think losing Theo is a good thing. I mean, he's made bad decisions across the board for the most part. I think Cherington's a good step in the right direction for Pittsburgh. But so if you look at let's take the bottom 3 and what they're doing in the minor league system. You got Tampa Bay, you got Miami, and you got Baltimore. All of them under $60 million thereabouts in payroll. Hey, I love Hudson Head. Hudson Head's going to be a hell of a ball player, Durf. He's going to be really good when it's all said and done. Now, it's going to take about 3 years for him to get up here, but you have to take into account from the Padres, he was their 8th best prospect, and prospects 1 through 7 were all either on the major league team or a hot top 100 prospect. So at just 19 years old, Hudson Ed is one hell of a pitcher, or excuse me, center fielder, and really could be the centerpiece of that team in a couple years. So, I think that's a good trade, especially when you're not going to sign him, right? That's the big part of it. If you're not going to sign him long term, then you got to move him. And Head's going to be a good ball player. I like the moves they've made. We will talk about that before the start of the season. I'm going to do a prospect show, so that'll be interesting. But so anyway, so these bottom 3 teams, Tampa Bay, Miami, and Baltimore, they're all kind of emerging. Tampa Bay aside, Tampa Bay's kind of been there, right? But it's been repeatable for them. Miami really showed glimpses last year. Their pitching is phenomenal. And Baltimore, I'll tell you, people don't realize, people don't realize how talented Baltimore is with young pitching and young hitting. They're really, Otley Rushman's going to be, of course, the middle of that. But you got Grayson Rodriguez, a big Texas pitcher. You got Ryan Mountcastle. You got Austin Hayes. There's a lot of potential there in Baltimore for years to come. So watch out what they're doing. And of course, at $60 million, you'd think they'd probably be prepared to spend. We're going to talk about motives in a little bit. Baltimore's got some clear motives there, right? They got not in state, but they've got a rival in DC that's spending a lot of money and making some good moves. So don't be surprised to see Baltimore start spending some money here when they feel like their young players are ready enough to move on. And you would think Rutschman's probably maybe a September call-up. He might all-star break. So when that happens, you'd have to think, the pitching and some of those guys, they want a lot of those guys, not a lot, but a good bit of those guys to come at the same time. So look for Baltimore to see, a youth movement here around the all-star break this year. And that's a good thing. So there's one other tier, though, about when that really just kind of struck me. And I didn't go too deep into it. I might do another show about it. But it's that middle tier. It's that tier of teams who have motivation to be good, who have a pretty good nucleus, and quite frankly, there's a lot of meat left on the bone as far as spending money goes. 2 teams really came to mind when I started looking through those. And of course, the first one that comes to mind is everybody's darling this year, Toronto. They're currently spending now. So I'll be honest. The site that I went to, I don't have it in front of me, so I can't. I usually like quote my sources, but I don't have it in front of me, so I'm not going to go looking for it. But this particular site, it's nice because they break down team by team, and then you can go in and it filters down on spreadsheet, what each player's making. So I had Toronto with George Springer still, so they didn't update that. So I don't know if that's 109 with Springer anticipated being in there, or if it's 109 accurate, right? I think he's supposed to make like $15 million or something like that. But so anyway, either way, 109, 17th most in the major leagues, right there around the middle of the pack. They've shown that they're motivated to try and build a winning team this year. I think they see that the AL East is a little bit down with Boston not being as good as they have been. Baltimore obviously weak, and Tampa Bay, just sending off their best pitcher. So I think they see an opportunity. I look for them to capitalize on it. But you want to talk about the nucleus already being in place, both at the major league level and at the minor league level. Still for the Blue Jays, there's a lot there. There's a lot to like there for the Blue Jays. You're talking about guys. You're talking about guys. So the who's who of prospects from 3 years ago, right? Vlad Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette, Gavin Biggio, Lourdes Gurriel. They signed Hyun Jin Ryu. They just signed Kirby Yates. Robbie Ray. Sounds weird saying Rob Ray. And then you add on top of that Nate Pearson, who looks like he could be a front of the line arm. Being a West Virginia guy, Alek Manoah. Durf. Alek Manoah is a name to remember. He might come up as a closer or as setup guy off the bat, but he's a West Virginia guy. He went in the first round. I think he's 8th or 9th overall a couple years back. Big, tall righty, those mid to high 90s, good placement, developed a slider and a changeup. The slider is a wipeout pitch. What's up, Tom? Thanks for coming, buddy. So what? Alek Manoah is a name to watch out for the Blue Jays. Again, I think he breaks in initially out of the bullpen, but then he goes into the starting rotation year 2, and really has the makeup of being a frontline starter when it's all said and done. And then you throw in Simeon Woods Richardson, who's probably a little bit further on. Austin Martin's the 5th overall pick from last year. It's called the best pure hitter in the draft out of Vanderbilt. You'd have to think he's on a quick ascent. They compared him to Dansby Swanson as far as hitting skill, bat to ball skill. So you really got to like what they have there. So Toronto's got room to both move, sign a free agent, as well as to go out and trade for a player with these prospects. You're going to see, the continuance of guys like Kyle Schwarber and Josh Bell and John Lester get dished off to these teams who have decided they're not ready to compete yet. And these teams like Toronto will be around to swoop these guys up, and it'll make for good baseball at the end of the year. But there's going to be a lot of JV caliber teams in the majors this year, and that's a little bit unfortunate, right? But it's the sign of the times. Like I said, the fact that fans weren't allowed in the stands last year really kind of hurt a lot of these teams' revenue. So to stay above water, if you have to do it, you have to do it. The other team I want to talk about, Uncle Nearest tonight, by the way, is the drink of choice. Good Kentucky bourbon. It's a spawn off of Jack Daniels. It's got kind of the Jack Daniels taste. It's sweet. It's a good sip. I quite enjoy it. But back to the Braves, $118 million, the 16th most in payroll. The thing about the Braves, and we're talking about a little bit later with the Yankees, they're just really positioned well because a lot of their stars, they're positioned well for now. In a couple of years, it's probably going to be uncomfortable for them when they have to resign. Freeman signed, not Freeman, Acuna signed a really team-friendly deal. Albies signed a team-friendly deal. I think Freeman's a little bit higher paid, but most of these guys that they've gotten aren't breaking the bank. And I think that's a distinct bonus for the Braves, especially if they want to bring in a Trevor Bauer or a JT Realmuto or one of those top-line free agents. I think that's a benefit, again, for the short term. So if you want to bring on, Bauer loves to sign those one-year deals. I think it's a great situation for him to go to Atlanta and team up with them. For a year or two and get premium money with the Braves until some of these younger guys need paid better, right? So again, there's a lot of talent there. There's a lot of talent in the minor leagues. You're looking at guys like Kyle Wright. You're looking at guys like Christian Pache. You're looking at Shea Langoliers. You're looking at William Contreras. There's really a lot of talent. Again, a lot of these guys probably aren't going to be impactful at the major league level, especially not the pitchers. The pitchers probably could be, but they'll be good trade pieces for teams teams like the Cubs, who might be looking for a catcher in a couple weeks if they trade off Wilson Contreras. And then all of a sudden, if his brother's there, seed, planet, if his brother's there and all you have to do is give up I hate to say it, to Kyle Henry. If you're going to stink, you may as well stink. If you can get a good young catcher, obviously you need another piece, I'd imagine. Why not do that, right? So there's a whole bunch of leverage that comes with having good minor league players. And I feel like both of these teams are really well positioned. We'll talk a little bit more about that as the weeks unfold. We get closer to the season. But I think it's an interesting conversation to have. It's fun to kind of try and get inside these teams' heads. and see what their next move might be. So that's what this next exercise is going to be all about. Chap's Fantasy Chat comes to you Thursday nights at 8. Make sure to come back at 10 o'clock tonight. We're going to talk some football. We're going to talk the other angle with me and RC, Chappie and RC. It's a fun show, not really super rigid in what we talk about. Obviously, we're going to talk a lot about the AFC and NFC championship games this weekend, talk about some hot stove moves, some Deshaun Watson talk, I'm quite sure, some coaching change moves, just a lot of good stuff. That's tonight at 10, every Thursday night at 10. The other angle with Chappie and RC. Make sure and join in. But let's get to these 4 teams. I got 4 teams that are making ruckus, right? We got 4 teams that have really stepped up and made some moves this offseason already. What are they trying to do? What are they trying to accomplish? What's their motive? We'll talk about these 4 teams. The first team I want to talk about, the New York Yankees. The Yankees are going to Yankee. They're always going to spend money. I feel like in recent years, they've not really had – I'll talk about that tonight, Tom. I will talk about that tonight. Tom knows I'm a big Steeler fan. He's saying Dwayne Haskins is the future of the Steelers. Well, I don't know about that. I don't know about that, but I do have a take on it, and I will talk about it tonight. A lot of stuff going on in the NFL. I'll say that right now. There's, a lot of underlying stories going on, and that's what's fun, right? It's fun kind of talking about the things that other people are maybe letting slip by because, quite honestly, it's an exciting time to be talking about the AFC and the NFC. Who's going to, Pat Mahomes, is he going to play? Tom Brady, yeah, all that stuff's fun, but we try to take it a little bit lower. So we'll talk about that tonight. So back to the Yankees. They have the second highest payroll in the majors, $193 million, $9 million behind the Dodgers. Again, I think the Yankees have kind of fallen into spending just to spend mode over the last couple of years. Yes, they've getting Garrett Cole is a good thing. Re-signing DJ LeMahieu is a good thing, right? I have to wonder if they're not regretting. I have to wonder if they're not regretting that Gio Stanton trade sign, right? 13-year, $325 million, and the guy can't stay on the field. He's making $29 million this year. This year. Garrett Cole's making $36 million this year. But when you peel the onion back another layer, the Yankees are able to do that because they're a good business. They run things right. What do I mean? So after those 2 big dogs, after those 2 big spenders, you got a bunch of guys, 16 to 10. There's $16 to $10 million. There's about 5 or 6 of them, right? So we're looking at Chapman's making 16 a year. LeMahieu, like I said, is making 15 a year. That's a great sign at 15. I know he's a little bit older, but that's a great sign, $15 million a year for DJ LeMahieu. That kind of bat, that kind of versatility. Really solid deal. Zach Britton at $13 million. Aaron Hicks at $10.7. Stinks. Severino at $10.7. Lots expected of him. Aaron Judge, $10.18 million. Now he's kind of falling in that Stanton category, right? Where he's having a hard time staying on the field. But man, you got to think one of these years. I know we're still waiting for Greg Bird. I know, I get it. I understand that, right? But Judge has shown he can do it. He's just got to stay healthy and stay on the field. So you got these middle tier guys, these $10 to $15 million a year guys, which that's a lot for a player, right? But here's where they kind of make up for it. Luke Voigt, 1 year, $4.7 million. Gary Sanchez, 1 year, $6.7 million. Gio Urshela, 1 year, $4.6 million. Gleyber Torres, 1 year, 4 million. It really speaks to, yeah, Durf, we're all waiting for him, right? No, it really speaks to the investment that they make in the scouting department to be able to pick up. Luke Foyt was a throwaway. So is Ursula. They've got these guys all throughout their system that they see something in. And they've done a damn good job of developing a lot of those guys, right? They failed on some. Greg Bird, for instance, being one of them. But the Yankees are top loaded right now. And there's actually some room for them to make another move or two. Because if you look at the rotation, it's not great. Corey Kluber's their number 2 guys. I mean, you got Luis Severino. I understand that. He's got ace stuff. Domingo Germán showed glimpses of ace stuff. Then he got busted for PEDs. Jordan Montgomery's looked good in spots. Not so good in others. And then you're looking at Deivi Garcia's, Jonathan Loaizaga, Michael King, and Clark Schmidt, all kind of jockeying for that 5th guy / swingman. Any of those guys blow you away? They don't me. I look for the Yankees to add another arm. Now, I'll say this. I know Yankees fans really like Clark Schmidt. Really like Clark Schmidt. There's a lot of potential there. But losing that year of development competition, it really hurt those kids. So it's going to take them some time to get ramped back up. And you can't expect them to come in and work a full workload, especially those kids that, double and triple A that had started to get worked up and then had to stop. It's really going to be hard for those kids. Especially, yeah, no, absolutely. That's exactly my point, Durf. Trevor Bauer, and he hates New York, right? They'd have to give him Garrett Cole-like money to go there. And even then, he hates New York. I really would be surprised if they sign Trevor Bauer. But it wouldn't be out of reason for them to go and try and trade for one of these teams dumping off. Go make a trade with the Cardinals for one of their pitchers for Flaherty. Go make a trade with any number of teams are trying to dish off right now. I think that's probably, and then they sign a bat. Look, you look at their rotation. Bauer, yeah, I see him as a Dodger, quite honestly. That's me. But who knows? I mean, I think Bauer kind of likes to be the underdog a little bit. So but honestly, I think that you put him in LA in the Dodgers uniform, and that's a really good fit with the that 1, 2, 3. But so back to the Yankees. You look at their, I do this fan graphs. Clint Frazier starting in left field, Judge in right field, and Hicks in center field is what they have projected. Now, I know that's very speculative. I understand that. Does that blow you away? It sure as hell doesn't me. So, it's funny. These things happen quickly. Last night I'd say Michael Brantley would make a lot of sense in New York. Now, I know he signed back with the Astros via Toronto, right? There's a lot of weird stuff going on with free agents, guys, signing. Oh, I changed my mind. I don't know what's the deal with that. But you would think, boy, Springer made a lot of sense with the Yankees, right? Obviously, it's not going to happen. But to put someone in left field will make a lot of sense. I just don't know how much they trust Clint Frazier long term. So they could use an outfield bat. They could definitely use another pitcher. I think they trade for one. I think they sign the other. That's just my take on it. But fact of the matter is, the Yankees are deep. They're in a position of power because not only do they have a deep major league team, they also have a very deep prospect list to choose from. So they can appeal to teams like the Pirates who are trying to dish off players for young kids. The Yankees have invested in those young kids. They're a little bit more constrained on the payroll, but knowing the Yankees, that's not going to stop them. That's not going to keep them from spending. If they know, if they really like Jake Odorizzi, they're going to go out and sign Jake Odorizzi. If they really like, the outfields are, Carlos Santana, they're going to go sign Carlos Santana. They're not going to be constrained by money. The second team, Durf, you'll appreciate this. The second team that I'm kind of following here, the Washington Nationals. Fifth highest payroll in the majors, $171 million. They've already seemed to fill a need. I really like what they've done. It's kind of cool being a Cubs and a Pirates fan. It's kind of cool seeing them get both Schwarber and Bell. The cool thing about that is it kind of makes them versatile because Bell's a switch hitter. So Turner's a righty, Soto's a lefty, Bell's a switch hitter, and then Schwarber's a lefty. That's a really nice little flip-flop depending on whoever you throw at them. It kind of makes them versatile, right? So you really like the power combo. There's a lot of strikeouts between those two bats, though. But, Juan Soto, guys, I just don't think he gets enough credit for – he's still only 22 years old. He seems like he's been around for 10 years. And he's just a special player. If Victor Robles rounds into form, having Robles and Turner and Soto could really make that lineup potent. But as it stands, Robles has to prove himself. He has to prove his worth hitting at the top of the lineup. You'll see him hitting 7th, 8th, 9th this year, and then putting Turner at 1, Soto at 2, and Bell at 3. I don't think that's a bad thing. Turner, to me, is more of a I don't want to put it, he's a modern 2. 2's used to, hit and run, advance the runner. Now your 2s are probably more like Juan Soto, right? Get on base a lot, put the bat on the ball, hit for power and run. Trey Turner is your perfect 2-hitter in a modern baseball scheme. But Robles has to develop before you can do that. Robles is one of those guys, too, that, he's still really fresh. He could turn it on really quick, Well, the thing about Bell is you can't DH him because you got to DH Schwarber. You have to, right? So if there is no DH, that's a great point. If there is no DH, that constrains things a little bit, right? Because then you put Schwarber out and left, you have to move Soto over to right. That crowds the outfield a bit with Robles playing every day in center field. You have to play Robles in center field because of his defense. But if there is no DH, it makes things – I think at that point you're looking more for a versatile guy, more for a guy, a Marwin Gonzalez type that could play 6 different positions as opposed to, another outfielder or another third baseman. They need a third baseman. Rendon should still be there. That's a different story for a different day. So anyway, the Nationals. The Nationals are built by their pitching staff. And this pitching staff was built for the playoffs. So when you look at a playoff series and how it lays out, there are a few teams in the major leagues that can match up with Strasburg and Scherzer. It's just not like, when you want to talk about grittiness. Now, I know Strasburg's had a few injuries. I get that. But as far as potential pitching, at this point for Strasburg, he's proven it, right? Both of those guys are big game pitchers. Corbin slots in nicely as a 2 or 3. He's got that wipeout slider. And then you throw on top of that a John Lester, who, if nothing else, is an innings eater. But he's not just an innings eater. He's a lot more than that, right? He's an innings eater who actually is a pretty good pitcher. Now, I know last year his ERA was a little bloated. Like I said, this year's going to be weird because players didn't have time to work out of their slumps. Players didn't have time to, go. It's just, you want to take into account statistics from last year, but you're going to find me doing a lot of this, going back and lumping the last 2 years together. Because I think it gives you a better representative sample when you do that. Because the 60-game season isn't a full season. It's just not. So you could see, again, the 5th highest payroll, $171 million. I'd say that's probably close to the max, especially when you look at the competition. They're trying to keep up with the Joneses this year and the Mets. The Mets love to shoot themselves in the foot. So I think the Nationals have to feel really good about where they are. I think they might be cost efficient and go out and sign another, maybe another bullpen arm, right? Tyler Rainey was really good last year. Hudson disappointed. They acquired Will Smith last year. They've got a fairly good – those all seem like setup guys to me, right? A Trevor Rosenthal seems like he makes a lot of sense for the Dodgers – or excuse me, for the Nationals. He just seems like the type of player that make the Nationals back into that bullpen flow a little bit more smoothly. It'll be interesting what they do. I'd imagine they probably, just like the Yankees, I'd imagine they probably try and go cost efficient and sign a bullpen guy and maybe another bat. Again, Starlin Castro, even though he's only 30, putting him at second base every day and Carter Kieboom at third base, I just don't see that as a winning formula for the Nats. So I look for them to add another bat as well. So I could have positioned this next team in that category earlier where I was talking about teams that are really set up well. The Chicago White Sox, the 14th highest payroll in the major leagues. Less than the Red Sox, the Phillies, the Cardinals, and yes, the Cubs, $125 million. They've already been active. Went out and signed Lance Lynn, traded for Lance Lynn. Really kind of set that up to anchor down that rotation. They're a really nice mix of youth and veteran leadership. If you look at their lineup, to me, the veteran presence is clear. I love that they went out and re-signed Adam Eaton. That's where he started his career. 32 years old, left-handed hitter, slotted probably to hit second in that lineup. It's a nice compliment to Tim Anderson leading off. Yasmani Grandal, 32 years old. Jose Abreu, 34 years old. Like I said, Tim Anderson's 27 years old. But then, the fun part, what you really look forward to. Eloy Jimenez, 24. Yoel Moncada, 25. Madrigal, I don't think Madrigal's getting talked about enough, 23. It's probably because he's just probably at the major league level because of his extreme ability to put bat to ball. I think he needs to fill out a little bit. But his ability to hit just makes him to where you have to play him. So it's funny. Like I said, these things happen quickly. I wrote this. I'm going to say it. Seems like a guy like Michael Brantley would have been a great fit here. Wrong. Zzz. Signed with the Blue Jays, then reneged. Signed with Houston. Other options, though, David Dahl might be a good spot here. Chuck Peterson might be a good spot here. Adam Engel's the weak link. You can't have Adam Engel as your everyday left fielder. It'll be interesting what they do. This team, though, to be clear, is built around their pitching staff currently. As good as that young offensive talent is, Giolito, 26 years old. Keuchel, great innings leader, 33 years old. Lance Lynn has been this pickup of the offseason thus far, 33 years old. Dylan Cease, Michael Kopech, phenomenal bullpen. Liam Hendricks was a great sign. Aaron Bummer. Aaron Bummer, 100.100 versus right-handed batters last year. Evan Marshall, 119 against lefties. They're in a really good spot in Chicago on the south side. And again, the point of all of this is $125 million is all they're spending on these because they've got so many young players. The 14th highest payroll. There's plenty of room for them to go out and sign whoever the hell they want. Durf, you want to talk about Trevor Bauer? If you're the White Sox, what's stopping you? Right? As much as a Cubs fan, as much as that pains me to say, the White Sox are set up phenomenally. Oh, hell. Next page. Garrett Crochet, left-handed pitcher, consistently gets over 100 miles an hour. 6 innings pitched last year, 0 walks, 8 Ks, 0.00 ERA. He was drafted last year, guys. Again, a lefty throwing over 100 miles an hour. Wow. Jace Fry, Cody Ewer. They've really got a good bullpen, guys. I don't feel like the White Sox need another bullpen guy. I feel like they could probably use another starter and a left fielder. Isn't this fun? It's fun to talk about this, right? It's fun to talk about. The White Sox have plenty of room to do whatever the hell they want. They're in a big market. They've got room under the cap. And they've got chips to trade, too. Michael Kopech. It'll be interesting to see what they do. The fourth team, and everybody knows who this is. The keeping up with the Joneses San Diego Padres. The 6th highest payroll, $162 million. They're clearly trying to compete with the defending World Series champions here. They go out and get a hell of a deal on Yu Darvish. It's hard to talk for an hour, guys. Sometimes you get choked up. They go out and get Yu Darvish for 4 lottery tickets, in essence. They go out and get Blake Snell for a couple good players. Nothing great. I mean, it's not, Patino's probably the best of that group that came back to them. He has been a little disappointing. And then the Joe Musgrove trade, I feel like of those 3 trades, I feel like the Musgrove trade was the most even trade because I feel like the guys that they got back from Musgrove were actually really good players. The pitcher they got a kid from Pittsburgh who's 26. I'm not going to talk about him, but the Omar Cruz kid, He kind of reminds you of a Hendricks type guy. He's more of a locator. He's a left-handed pitcher. I believe he's a left-handed pitcher. He throws low to mid 90s, but he's big on location. And again, I think Hudson Head's going to be the centerpiece of that team in 5 years. So I feel like of those three trades, I think the Pirates did the best job, which is a good sign, right? So obviously, we'll start with the rotation first. When you look at the rotation, Darvish, Snell, Paddock, 1, 2, 3, 4, Musgrove, 5, Lamet. To me, these signings scream that the Padres feel like as much as they rushed off Chris Paddock, as much as they rushed up Tatis, they're not willing to do that with Mackenzie Gore. And I think that speaks to um, just how much they value this kid and his abilities. So, they'll go with a damn good rotation this year. They've invested in that rotation. But again, that doesn't mean you're not going to see Gore all year. What that does mean, though, is Mackenzie Gore's going to make a hell of an end of the year transaction, right? I see them bring him up around the All-Star break, putting him in a bullpen role initially, and trying to work him into whether an opener or a whatever influence, whatever the hell they call it. But that's a good chip to have, right? To me, for the Padres, again, they're probably at the top of their threshold with the sixth highest payroll. But I think it's AJ Preller. He's shown that he's willing to. He's got a big set. He'll invest. He'll invest if he feels it's important. And I feel like the bullpen for San Diego is where I'm looking at where they might need the most improvement. They've got some decent pieces there, but there's no real, and that might be a Mackenzie Gore type thing at the end of the year. Emilio Pagan is probably the closest thing they have to a closer. He did a little bit with Tampa Bay year before last, before getting traded over, and he's never really grew into that role. Drew Pomerantz was in essence their closer last year. At 32 years old, that's really not his cup of tea, if you will. So, and then Matt Strahm and Tim Hill, they do have Ryan Weathers as one guy that might be an option for them in the bullpen. His dad pitched for, I think he pitched for the Rockies, David Weathers. He was never really a stuff guy, though. So I don't know. I haven't seen much Ryan Weathers. I can't speak to him a whole lot, but he might be one of the guys that they look to early on in the bullpen. But I think there's a clear need for the Padres to go out and just bolster that bullpen, right? So the Mackenzie Gore thing is one of those things where it'll be really interesting to see how they choose to use him this year, because he's been kind of waiting. He's kind of pulling out Byron Buxton, where you're like, well, what's he going to do? You going to bring him up? You're going to see him this year, I think, and in what role is kind of the big question. So I feel like the Padres are probably close to maxed out. They're going to have to make savvy moves if they're wanting to improve their bullpen. That's definitely something that they can do there. As far as offensively, it's really tough. It's really tough. Will Myers and Eric Hosmer both kind of seem like logistical, common sense improvement opportunities. I don't know. Those guys are so supplanted in that team makeup, if they can do that or if they will do that. But, the rest of that team, Grisham, Tatis, Machado, Pham, Cronensworth, even Nola, all seem to be pretty established with where they're playing and where they are in the lineup. The other thing is you might move Cronenworth back to more of a utility role and bring in a second baseman. That might be an option they choose to go. We'll just have to wait and see. But again, I think at this point the Padres start to have to start playing savvy and who they pick up and who they sign. They might have one more big signing. Of course, if you're going to sign a closer, it's going to cost a lot. It's not going to be cheap. But aside from that, I don't think there's a whole lot more they're going to do spending wise. That said, they can go out and make a trade anytime they damn well please because of the prospects that they have. So it'd be interesting to see. It's fun to talk about this stuff. So, it's 8:50. I'm going to jump off of here. Chap's Fantasy Chat Thursday nights. We are going to start talking about the stuff that I love to do, breaking down positions, who goes where, talking about silos as far as who led in stolen bases, home runs. Those things are fun to me. We're going to start talking about that a little bit over the next couple of weeks. But until some of these players start to slot in, I feel like it really is just kind of chasing your tail because, you could love Brian Hayes if the Pirates go out, and this is wacky. I know it'll never happen. If the Pirates go out and trade for Chris Bryant, Brian Hayes lost his opportunity. So it really is important to see where, the JT Realmutos and the Trevor Bauers of the world slot in before we start making decisions as to, Julio Urias is a number 3 now. Stuff like that. We have to up his value. So, we'll continue to talk about that, but we will start siloing down into, preparing for a draft. Even though we're 2 months away, it's never too early to start determining X is greater than Z or Z is greater than X. And that's what's the fun part about it. So, Chap's Fantasy Chat. Join me. I'm coming back in an hour. I'm going to go grab a bite to eat, take the dogs out, refresh my drink. The other angle, our Chappie and RC, 10 o'clock's on Thursday night. We're going to be talking predominantly football, but, as we go on, we'll talk some college basketball. We'll get into some baseball when it's appropriate. Please come back and join me at 10. The other angle, Chappie and RC. Hope you guys enjoy the content. Join me next week. We'll be talking more baseball. I love doing this. It's a great time of year just because, hope springs eternal, right? So wear your mask, wash your hands, watch a bunch of good sports. Thank you guys for tuning in. See you guys in an hour. Go get something to eat. Refill your drink. Chappie. Thursday nights at 10. Chap's Fantasy Chat. Later, guys.